I've lived in my apartment for almost 2 years now, and I've always thought I was pretty careful. I like to keep my space organized, everything in its place. My keys are always on the little hook by the door, my wallet in the same drawer, my shoes lined up neatly on the shoe rack. Even small things, like the remote on the coffee table or a notebook on my desk, have their specific spots. I always felt comfortable with that order. It gave me a sense of control in a world that feels chaotic most of the time. But a few weeks ago, I started noticing something strange. It began subtly at first, small enough that I could convince myself it was just my imagination or forgetfulness. One night, after a long day at work, I came home and hung my jacket on the hook by the door, just like I always do. Later, when I reached for it, it wasn't there. I remember thinking I must have left it on the chair in the living room, but when I checked, it wasn't on the chair either. I even looked under the couch cushions, just to be thorough, but it wasn't there at all. I remember feeling a little uneasy, but I shrugged it off. Maybe I had taken it off somewhere else and forgotten, or maybe my roommate had moved it without mentioning it. The next day, everything seemed normal again. I left the apartment for work, came back, and everything was in its usual place. That's why I didn't think too much of the jacket incident at first. But then it started happening more frequently. Small things, almost insignificant, were out of place. My coffee mug would be on the counter instead of by the sink. A book that I was sure I had left on the nightstand was now on the desk. My headphones would be tangled in a completely different way than I had left them the night before. Nothing was broken, nothing missing, but the displacement was there. Always subtle, always precise, like someone had gone through my apartment carefully, but silently. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was just forgetting where I put things. Maybe I was so tired at night that I wasn't placing items where I thought I was. I even started keeping a mental note of everything I touched before going to bed, repeating in my head where I put it, making sure I remembered. But still, when I woke up or came home from work, the same small changes would have occurred. Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming at first glance, but enough to make me pause and stare, asking myself, how did this happen? It wasn't just random. There was a pattern, or at least that is how it felt. The objects weren't moved far, just enough to be noticeable if I was paying attention. Sometimes a book would be on the chair instead of the desk. Sometimes my shoes would be slightly misaligned on the rack. I started photographing my apartment at night before bed just to see if I could catch anything. I would take a picture of the living room, the kitchen, my desk, and then compare them the next morning, and sure enough, subtle differences would appear. The mug would be a few inches to the left. The notebook would have shifted. The jacket would be draped differently. I remember the first time I saw the comparison photos, I froze. It was too precise to be an accident, and too quiet to have been done while I was awake. I began experimenting in small ways, placing objects in unusual spots intentionally to see if they would move. One night, I put my keys on top of the microwave in a place I rarely use. The next morning, they were on the counter. I put a notebook on the couch instead of the desk. It ended up back on the desk. Nothing else seemed to be disturbed. No signs of forced entry, nothing broken. And yet, these items were moved without any explanation. I considered the possibility of someone entering while I slept. But I live on the 3rd floor. The doors are solid, the locks are new, and I never hear any sounds of forced entry. I don't have roommates, and my neighbors are quiet, mostly asleep at night. I even checked the security cameras in the building's hallway. Nothing unusual. Every night, the hallway outside my door is empty. And yet, the displacements continue. It started affecting my daily life. I found myself checking and rechecking everything. Before leaving for work, I would glance around, making sure the mug was on the counter. My shoes were aligned. The keys were on the hook. But even when I checked, I still found changes later. I started waking up during the night to check things. Walking through the apartment quietly, peering at my belongings, measuring angles in my head, convinced that if I went to sleep now, something would be different in the morning. Sometimes I would find the objects in a slightly different orientation, not enough to be obvious at first, but noticeable if I looked closely. The notebook would be rotated. The mug's handle facing the wrong way. My jacket's sleeves folded differently. I remember touching my jacket one morning and feeling a small fold in the fabric that I hadn't left there. I started thinking about all the times I thought I was imagining things. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe it really was happening. The quietness of it all is what unnerves me most. There's no sound, no creaking floors, no doors opening. Just a subtle shift in objects, an invisible presence that I cannot see or hear. It's as if someone or something is aware of me and respects my silence. I've never felt unsafe physically, but mentally, it's exhausting. I feel like I can't trust my own perception anymore. I started leaving notes around the apartment, little reminders to myself. Did you move this? Or check this tomorrow. Even with the notes, small changes still occur. Sometimes I find the notes slightly repositioned, although I know I left them exactly aligned. I've asked friends if they believe in this sort of thing, and of course, they say I'm imagining it. I want to believe that too, that it's all in my head. But the consistency is too real, the precision too deliberate. I've even tried setting up small experiments with random objects. A pen on the counter, a coaster on the table, a book in the corner. Every morning, at least one item is in a different place. Always subtle, never drastic, but enough to make me stop, stare, and question whether I am really alone. I've checked every corner, every crevice. Nothing suggests anyone is entering. The locks are intact. The windows are secure. There's no camera evidence, nothing unusual. And yet, the shifts keep happening. I began documenting everything in a notebook, writing down the time, the object, the exact change I noticed. After 2 weeks, I went back through the notes and photos. Patterns started to emerge. Certain items seem to be more active than others, more likely to be shifted. I noticed that the kitchen items are rarely moved, but books and papers are frequently altered. My jacket and coats are often repositioned in small ways. Even small things, like a pen on the desk, are rotated slightly. I can't explain it. I try rational explanations. Maybe I'm sleepwalking. Maybe I'm subconsciously moving things while tired. I've never sleepwalked before. My friends laugh when I suggest it. Maybe the apartment settles differently at night, floors shifting slightly, objects sliding. But the things don't slide. Not mugs, not notebooks, not jackets, not even the pens. Every movement seems intentional. Every shift seems deliberate. The strangest part is the feeling it leaves behind. There's no fear of physical harm, no threatening presence, just awareness. I feel observed in a way I can't quantify. I notice the objects as if they are leaving a trail for me, almost communicating something silently. I've tried ignoring it, leaving things as they are, but the urge to check is overpowering. I can't let it go. Some nights, I sit in the dark, staring at the arrangement of objects, questioning my own memory. I touch the mug, move it slightly, put it back, leave for a few hours, and come back to find it rotated again. I feel a cold tension building, subtle but persistent. I try to convince myself it's nothing. It's just your mind. But I know in my heart that something is off. Not supernatural, not dangerous, just wrong. I've considered moving, but it's a long process, and I don't want to admit defeat to something that may not even be real. I want to find a logical explanation, But every theory I form has a counterexample. Nothing fits. I've started thinking about installing cameras inside the apartment, just to catch a glimpse of what's happening. But even then, what will I use? Nothing. How do I prove what I can't capture? Every day, the tension grows. Small shifts in objects accumulate into a sense of imbalance, a subtle psychological unease that follows me. I check everything multiple times before bed. I check again after waking. And each time, there's something different. Not dramatic, not dangerous, just out of place. The fact that it's not threatening makes it worse. It's the kind of wrong that gnaws at you quietly, that makes you doubt your mind, your memory, your senses. I still live here, but I notice the small shifts every single night. Every morning, I wake up, glance around, and immediately feel that something isn't right. I touch the notebook, straighten the mug, check the jacket, and still, I know that by tomorrow, something will have changed again. There's no sound, no clue, nothing. Just subtle evidence that I am not alone, or, at least, that something is aware of me in ways I cannot explain. And the most unsettling thought, the one I cannot shake, is that no one else can see it. Friends, family, even neighbors, they all laugh when I describe it. Maybe you're tired, they say. Maybe it's just your imagination, but it's not. It's real. And I know it precise. They follow patterns I cannot ignore, yet I have no way to stop them, no way to catch them, no way to prove them. So now I live with it, every day noticing small movements, small differences. Small reminders that something is wrong, but not the kind of wrong that can be fixed. Just wrong enough to make me question everything I see and touch. I don't know if I'll ever understand it. I don't know if I'll ever feel normal in my own apartment again. But every night, when I walk through the rooms, when I touch my belongings, when I notice the tiniest shift, I feel it again. That quiet, impossible awareness. And that's when it hits me. This isn't normal. But it could still be explained.